Hello, everyone. Welcome to the February finance meetings, regular scheduled finance meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order and recognize that we have a full slate of counselors here for the committee. I do want to note that we're trying to end by 6:15 today at the latest to accommodate people getting over to the Scotto Hill workshop. The first order of business is approval of the minutes from January 8th. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. And move right to our first discussion item is on the grant policy. This kind of came up through a council meeting where people wanted some more understanding about how that process works. I think that's up to you, Tom, right?
Yeah, so this isn't really drafted in the form of a policy. It really, I sat down to codify kind of the practice of how we do it. So I guess I'll take direction from you whether you would like it to be formalized as a policy, and in which case I think we probably build it out a bit more. But this was, to be honest, I thought I saw it as busy work initially, but it was helpful to sit down, particularly in this pursuit of grants, is just to articulate why we're doing it. We need to have a purpose and we need to have some parameters. And so that was a helpful exercise to kind of document it. I was just thinking back in my mind, kind of through all the different grants we've done over the years. What is the motivating factor other than the obvious bottom line of a way to defray costs? But really making sure it aligns with our policies and practices and our comprehensive plan, kind of the big picture alignment. So I don't know if you want me to kind of walk all the way through it, but in a nutshell, I think staff in general, including myself, but and I certainly make my staff aware. I encourage them to be very active in awareness and pursuit of grants. I'm involved in the application, oftentimes at the very last stage. I'll have general awareness that, yeah, we're chasing this grant, and I set them loose. But I'm certainly involved in either signing them for the application or being a letter of support or something like that. And then in all cases, all grants come to you for acceptance. So we're never in a position of accepting a grant without your approval. In fact, it's almost always a requirement of the grant agency. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, not honest, but to be clear, most of the grants are either state or federal. And so it's not surprising they have this kind of local legislative body acknowledgement. There are sometimes nonprofit and philanthropic grants, but that is really far and few between, quite honestly. And then Norm has really introduced some important rigors from a financial tracking point of view. He insists that any grants that are accepted, finance be made aware, particularly grants of a federal sort of a certain amount, require us to actually perform a single audit. So there's additional financial review and reporting associated, but beyond that, Norm wants to know any grant of any amount, just so there's basic awareness. And that's been a good policy to institute, and that's really since he's been with us. Frankly, we've been a lot more specific in that regard.
Norm, is that after it's awarded, or even that it's been applied for?
The rule is if you're expending federal monies, and that includes federal monies passed through the state, if you expend in excess of $1 million in a given fiscal year, and that's a new limit. It used to be $750 if you're just tangentially familiar with the rules. If you expend more than $1 million of federal funds, you're required to have this single audit. And as part of our audit package, our financial audit package, and they issue the external auditors issue a separate report. And we state, and we have to file with the clearinghouse, the federal government clearinghouse, and we state how much we spent, and we list the grants that we spend them on. So it's not a grant that you've received approval for. It's more on the spending.
Okay, right.
To simplify for staff, so they don't have to understand, is it federal, is it not? at every department head meeting, Norm says, make me aware of any grants you've received. And so we let him be the clearinghouse of what has to do depending on, rather than relying on staff to determine, do I tell finance or not? We just have a standard rule, make them aware, let them sort through what needs to happen next.
And that population includes not only things that we do on the municipal side with federal dollars, but also the school, and just to give a flavor, our largest federal grant is the HIDA grant, our high intensity drug trafficking agency work we do is like big, it's 5 million. So we're gonna have a single audit pretty much every year as long as we administer that grant for HIDA.
And just be clear, that grant, we are simply serving as the fiduciary for this organization. There certainly are benefits that accrue to us, but I don't want you to suggest that we're seeing the benefits on our streets of $5 million every year. But we're serving as a fiduciary for a larger regional.
Our benefit that accrues to us is the administrative fee we get to charge.
Yeah, we get 2.5%.
Yeah.
To provide those services.
Okay. Sorry, I interrupted you. If you want to.
So no, that's kind of the long and short of it. In a nutshell, staff's encouraged to apply. I really think current staff is particularly engaged and adept at identifying opportunities and pursuing them. In most cases, we like to align them through the budgetary process, really for line of sight and awareness, but also kind of acceptance and authorization. Sometimes it doesn't work. Something kind of lands in our laps, if you will, or we didn't anticipate. But more often than not, you'll see, particularly in CIP, that's where you'll find most grant support. In the narrative, and in fact, in the spreadsheets, you'll see funding sources. And if there's, it's very seldom does a grant fund all of the initiative. It's usually a part, or there's a local match or something. So there's a combination of funding for many of the capital items that is called out there. So that's essentially how it is. I did do a little research online. There really aren't too many that I found readily available that suggests to me that not many communities have a thing. That's not to say we shouldn't. Most of the policies I found really are kind of in reverse. It's not us applying, it's agencies that are handing money out. They have, very clear procedures and rigors for their internal process for awarding. But in our case, we're really on the receiving end, not the awarding end.
And that's a good point. Grant procedures from the grantor perspective, there's no common theme. It's all, every grant's different pretty much. So you have to be very cognizant of what's in the grant agreement.
One thing that we could do that I think is probably a good routine is, I don't know that we don't consolidate in any single spot and identify all the grant activity we have in a fixed period. And that might be good just to start tracking that and reporting that out, just so frankly, staff gets credit for all their good efforts, frankly. It gets lost in the larger discussion often.
I think that would be great to have as part of the budget process, just to kind of build in some sort of exhibit that has all the grants that were awarded and applied for, just so that, again, we know, and the community knows, because again, that to me also indicates that we're trying to pursue other sources of funding so that we're not relying on property tax. So I think that would be great. Tommy said something that made me think, in the process, and I always go back to the Payne Road grant that we applied for, that was a federal one. The reason that came to council, I think, was because of the significantly high dollar match. And so I'm wondering, is that something that we should memorialize too, and process, either your process, or if we want to memorialize the process into a policy, just like if the match requires a certain dollar threshold and it's outside of the budget process, should the council approve it before we submit it?
Yeah, I can't think of a case where I am applying for money that requires a local match that I don't already have authorization for.
Right. Was this just the one example?
Which one are you referring to?
Remember when we applied for the Payne Road one?
Yes.
The federal one, and because of, I know we were asking for 20 million, and I think it required 2 million. I don't remember the exact number, but I remember it was a big number. And so that's where. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one where I did not have any authorization in hand. And frankly, that order of magnitude is really irregular. So I think
Yeah.
that's something that really deserves line of sight,
Yeah.
for sure. I will say that the one exception, and there's a statute that governs this, that what you'll see that you do approve at the point of application is the CDBG grants.
Mhm.
We are a non-entitlement community, so we cannot have direct access to CDBG funds. We're part of a larger pool administered by Cumberland County
Mhm.
and actually serve on the committee for the award. But for all of those grants, and in most cases, we're sponsors to someone else. We're not actually the applicant. But that process, because it's a federal grant and it's of a certain category, it does require authorization from the elected officials, even at the time of application.
Mhm.
That's the one exception, I would say.
Is there an advantage to us being on that award committee?
Sure. Well, I honestly, we've got to, I think, recuse ourselves if we're on, have a member on the committee. I don't know that we can vote on
That's
our own
exactly where I was
application.
headed.
Yeah.
But I know Jay Chase, when he was planning director, was a longstanding member. I don't know that we currently sit on that, but I think having involvement is helpful.
I don't remember, like, the point you were just going back to what you were saying about not having authorization. Again, it seems like you would come to us if you don't have authorization where the match is required or some sort of local contribution. So I don't know if that needs to be in here. That just says in the event funding authorization is not available, you would come to the council first. But again, like, I don't want you to do that for everything, especially.
Yeah, but a general rule that limits everything or directs everything I do, I need to have appropriation authority, and you're the only ones that can grant that to me. We
Okay.
do it almost wholesale through the budget process. There's a lot of authorization
Yeah.
granted there. You'll notice on occasion throughout the year, we'll come for reserve accounts, something that wasn't in the budget, but it's under your control.
Yes.
I can't do anything without your authorization. So it's really the appropriation authority. And that's related to this, particularly if there's a local match requirement or something else. In most cases, we have pretty good awareness of grants and know it at the time of budget development and are kind of providing for that in the budget request. And that's, so we get the authorization as part of the budget.
I think it's good to list the grants out also for residents to see, like, I think with Scotto Hill, they're like, why are you doing that? And I think if they saw, oh my God, they're applying to grants all the time. Look at all, I think they might have a little more perspective of like, this is actually normal course of business. I personally don't feel like this is something that, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like my phone listens to me, and I got this group thing that came up that literally said it was nonprofit resource and grant opportunities. And it was 200 plus people in Tom's position being like, do you get authority to apply for grants? And everyone's like, no, it's operations.
Yeah.
Which I like, he needs to do his job. He
Yeah.
needs to do that. And I don't want to like add more to it. I think the only thing that came out of what I feel like put this before us, at least for me, was Scotto Hill, where what's coming out of that grant application is a decision that we are required to make action on, and that's closing a road.
Yeah.
And I think that was where I felt a little disconnected with, I didn't even know that was part of the discussion. And just because they applied for the grant doesn't mean we're doing it, but I think we were a little surprised by it. I also, though, don't want to put language on paper saying, making him do something beyond what is
Yep.
necessary, and also what our colleagues, they're not doing this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think just more transparency personally about what we're doing, what we're applying for, and maybe upfront, like, okay, Scotto Hill closed, like, we're gonna do this, this, and this. I don't think we knew at that point what we were doing.
I can tell you, we were keenly aware coming right off Sawyer Street, what, where this leads. And in our application, but more so after we provided additional clarification to them and called that out specifically, that even though we're applying, this requires a different statutory process that involves the council and the public in terms of discontinuing the road. So I think we did a good job of not overcommitting and making them abundantly aware. Frankly, they were aware that that was part of this as well. The other thing I could perhaps do is throughout the course of the year through my, biweekly manager reports, just to mention that we're applying for this or that, just to kind of, give you that line of sight, on an ongoing basis.
Part of me wonders, like, would it make more sense if Norm is the clearinghouse, that when you do your financial quarterly update, maybe part of that includes the grants? So that way, because again,
Yep.
I'm sure they're doing all of this a lot, and I don't know if we want it on every meeting or all the time. I feel like
It'd be a lot.
it'd nice to do it
Yeah.
quarterly
Well,
and
right,
get a
there's
sense.
Page that's like pending, the ones
Yeah.
we've applied for, ones we've been granted, ones that are pending, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just at least in like, you don't even need to go through it, it's just.
Yeah, just
It's
part
there.
of the financial update.
And I don't always get notified of everything that's applied for. I just, my,
Oh, okay.
as Tom said earlier, my focus is what did we get?
Right.
Mm,
So if we want line of sight on what's been applied for, Tom's
Yeah, I'd
gonna
have
know
no
it before
problem with
me.
okay.
Yep, yep. Yeah, and just imagine, all the money through PACS, that's all, mostly it's federal money that flows through PACS and, we have our fair degree of success there. So technically, all of that should be part of this report as well. That doesn't require kind of the formal application in its purest sense.
Yeah.
They've got their own very complicated process of identifying projects and awarding. But technically, it's grant support.
Yeah. So I think I generally agree with Karen. I don't think we need to memorialize this in policy. But again, just thinking how you guys, what makes the most sense for you guys in terms of bringing transparency at the right times to council in terms of what's being applied for.
Yeah, I mean, shame on me if I don't anticipate a project of such interest or importance that I'm not making you aware of it.
I think you generally do. I don't.
Yeah, I do too, and I
Yeah.
think the point was made earlier too about that, how really, I think that public interest is around some issue before us and what the impact of some grant may be.
Mhm.
So that, and I've, in the short time I've been here, it seems like as we're reviewing something like that, you're already reporting out that there's a grant application and,
Mhm.
so I'm not,
Yeah, and legally, I can't commit to something I can't control, whether it's financial or just
Yep.
continue to the street. I won't commit to something that I can't, I don't have the authority to commit to.
I think the original objection, like you said, Karen, was around Scotto Hill.
Yeah.
And it was really the idea that there were multiple choices of how to solve the Scotto Hill problem. There was originally one of those choices involved a possible grant opportunity. And that I think there was feeling in the public that it was kind of predisposed that we would go that way because it was an associated grant. And so people wanted to know more about that process.
Yeah, I didn't do a good enough job, I think, at the time explaining that we intend to apply for other opportunities. They simply weren't available to us. We're waiting for that grant to open.
Right.
Just open now, frankly.
Yeah, right. And as it turned
Right.
out, there is a second choice.
We heard a bit of that through Sawyer Street too, which is curious because that had great line of sight. That had 3 years of buildup. It involved 2 elected bodies.
All over the news and the media.
All over the news, yet we still heard at the end of it, why didn't I know that discontinuous is part of that?
I think that, I mean, that's always the challenge, right? Like
No.
through any decisions we make until the decision is about to be made.
Yeah, sure.
That's usually when people start to pay attention, and it's just, I would love for people to like, I wish we like had like this ability to like, maybe we can put this in the budget, like, know who's gonna be, disappointed in something now so that we can get them to come. But it's just, I just wish we could, like, I don't know how we solve for that.
Well, let me give some thought to an exhibit or something in the budget that would show past success and maybe even give a hint at what we're looking at the future. And then we can talk further about maybe some periodic reporting as well, whether it's through my report or some other means.
Well, I think John has forgotten that when he read his ACFR back on page 111.
ACFR, is it in there?
In the special revenue section, there's a column and it rolls up all the grants and revenue. And so it doesn't give you the granular that I think you're kind
Yeah.
of looking for, but it at least gives you a picture of the
Mhm.
totality of revenues and expenditures.
Yeah,
for-
I'm a bit selfish here. I'm interested, but also a bit selfish to really show our success.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we don't take the time to
That's,
do that.
that's honestly what I think is
I
the
agree.
best thing about this is, especially in the budget process, to say, look at all of these grants that we've applied for to offset property taxes, and, you know, that's something that our town takes seriously, but, you know, I know we're doing it. It would be nice to be able to point to something specific.
Yeah, and many of
and
the
say,
studies we've just concluded have a fairly small, but a small, grant component associated with them, and that gets lost in the larger conversation.
Right.
So I'll put some thought and energy into that, and perhaps you'll see it as soon as this budget.
Right,
We-
so if we look at some way to delineate it in the
Yeah.
budget and then periodic, even if it's just through your existing council reports.
Yep, but this was helpful, and this is a document that is, I'll probably continue to build on just to flesh it out further.
I had one kind of process question. Is there a central resource or something to subscribe to that would kind of be push notifications to staff about this grant's available, this, you know, does it? Because I understand they go out.
The consultants that specialize, that's what they do, is to make you aware of grant opportunities. We don't subscribe to any of those.
Okay.
You have to pay for that service.
The free service, Tom, is, it's called Grant Solutions, and it doesn't notify you. You have to actually go look. But you can go to the website and see what's.
And I think many of our staff are
That's
going
what
to
our
that.
staff are
That's how
doing.
they're being made aware.
They're monitoring that
So they,
frequently.
and they're doing it, so if they have a particular issue that they're working on, they'll
Yeah.
search those keywords and see what comes up.
Yeah, very often, more and more, it seems the grants are getting very, very specialized and specific. But we're doing our best to find matches.
And not surprisingly, highly competitive.
Yeah, the current federal administration, you know, it's kind of a different world, and that will probably correct itself at some point as well too. But right now, there's a dearth of federal grants of all kinds. We saw a lot in the area of resiliency and climate change and infrastructure, and most of those have dried up or been redirected, frankly.
And I'm right that you all agree that there's no, we don't have to set any kind of dollar thresholds for any different level of reporting or anything, right? Okay. Good. Any other questions on that? Is there any public comment at all? No, okay. All right, our next item is the budget review and calendar.
Yeah, real simple one. Or you want to introduce it, Larry?
No, that's okay. I think we just made that one change, right?
Yeah, it's just the one change I think you're already aware about, but just due to some scheduling of committee members and council leadership, rather than the original proposal, which was to do the budget presentation on March 25th, that would have been a special joint meeting of council and Board of Education where the superintendent and myself simply present the budget and that's it. Followed up by first reading at your next regular meeting on April 1st. That 25th date was challenging. So what we're proposing to do this year is to do presentation that night and have you consider first reading as well. And I'll just give you the backstory. That's historically how we always did it. And there were some past council, I forget, it doesn't matter who, but wanted to introduce some separation between presentation, like I'm just getting it now and you're asking me to vote on it, and I understand the optics of that. But first reading, as you know, is kind of initiates the process. It doesn't commit anything. And really the schedule that we build here is we build about a 6-week period between first and second, and that's when you're most active in budget review. So just given those limitations this year, that seemed like a reasonable accommodation without upsetting the whole calendar. We're able to kind of just shift that one date. And we can certainly return back to this other practice in future years if that suits you.
Do you think we need to change that time at all to make sure we have time for the regular business?
At this point, I don't know what else would be on your agenda. The presentation takes 20 to 25 minutes.
Okay.
So I think we
Okay,
might
that's
need
fine.
for a little longer meeting, but I don't know that it's totally out of bounds.
Okay,
And I would probably tuck it under my manager's report just for lack of a better place to fit on the agenda? Because I think we already have workshops lined up. If not, we can maybe start the meeting earlier.
I think it's good to have it at the beginning if you can, just for the people that are present
Yep.
to hear it.
Good. So that's it for that item.
Do we have TBD AM on the 13th
Right.
and 14th, so do we need to pick a specific time?
Yeah, you all, we're at your convenience. My staff is on notice to kind of reserve out those 2 mornings
Yeah.
and once you give us kind of the parameters of when you want to start and stop,
Yeah.
we'll come up with a proposed schedule of who's coming when.
Do you guys have a preference on how early to meet?
I think we did, last year, we did what, 8 to 1 or 8 to 12? I
think
can
8
meet.
to 12?
Yeah,
Maybe we could
That's good with
do
me.
8 to 12, and if we have to
go over,
extend,
we can go over,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Then we'll produce a list of, just based on our experience, who takes the most time and who might make sense to be heard on the same day. And work with our school colleagues to see what works best for them and propose a slate of, and a schedule.
Mhm.
We will, for the town side of things, we'll be providing staff a common set of slides. That doesn't mean that they have to be limited to those, but we want to make sure that they all cover general same territory. You've seen that over the last several years, and really focused around certain themes as well. So you'll see some commonality there.
And just for you, Larry, as the chair always tries to attend the school board budget workshops that happen on 3/11 and 3/12. So if you're available to go to those
Yeah.
are kind of like their staff department meetings, so it's
Just
all,
when you're hearing the interaction.
yeah, and you get to hear what's going on. And then we always, I don't know if we always made it formal, but it seems like their finance committee always comes to our finance committee meetings. We don't, I can't think of a time when I went to one of theirs.
You get the power of the purse string.
Yeah. So they always came, and so again, I think as we think of the meetings, just maybe extending the invite to Mitchell, because he's the finance chair,
Yeah.
to come and participate and at least just hear what's going on.
Yeah, Shannon actually kind of kicked that off, introducing the 2 of us and wishing us well with a collaborative effort.
Mhm.
I did hear from school board chair inquiring about, they learned earlier this week what the general purpose aid education is. It's maybe $30,000 more than it is the current year. Good news is it's not less, but and really the big driving factor there is the impact of our revaluation and what it did for our overall value.
Mhm.
So she's looking for some further detail around that phenomenon. I haven't spent the time to
I did
respond.
I did try and explain to her separately that the reval year is likely what caused the change, and so as other communities do their
Yep.
revals, that will change probably what we get, but until everybody, like, that's the challenging part, like, everybody's doing it at different
Yeah.
times, so if you didn't do a reval, you're probably getting a lot of money from
Yeah.
the state right now, which is kind of unfair in that lens, because we were.
Yeah,
I think we were on the end.
two factors that I appreciate, I think have the most impact is the valuation of the community. The richer the community, the less you get, is the theory. And then your school population, and we're kind of flat, slightly going down. So those 2 factors together produce a lower GPA.
Mhm.
I just, for what it's worth, I saw Portland is down 4 million, and that's a different order of magnitude, but
Yeah.
same phenomenon. They went through a reval.
One thing for your guys' awareness as well, I was at the county finance committee this week, and the finance committee did approve the budget, or at least recommend that the budget go forward to the commissioners. It is gonna be a 13.88% increase when typically it's a 4 or 5%, and the real reason is the loss of revenues from the federal government to the jail. And so that's unavoidable. We did make a strong recommendation, though, to the commissioners that they look at their fund balance, their unassigned fund balance, and see if there's more that they can contribute. It's not gonna be enough to make it go, like, maybe it'll go from 13.88 to like 12.99, like, but again, trying to do a little bit more. And so we encourage them to do that, to see if there's any more relief, but I don't know how that will translate in terms of a mill rate percentage,
Yeah.
but I know Cape Elizabeth, they were there and they ran the numbers, and again, they don't have the value increase that we do, but for them at least, it's a 1% increase on their budget for the $400,000 that they're assuming would be additional than they would normally get. So I don't think we'll be quite as dire, but you know, I know we have that 0% goal and this will be something. They did provide me, Tom, and I'll share it with you and you might even have it. Their 1 or 2 pager about like the value of the county and what the county does. But again, as we think about the budget process, we just might want to make sure people know, because we don't typically talk about the
Yeah.
county. We kind of see it as a
Yeah.
line, but it's going to be a significant line this year.
Yep, no, that's helpful. Yeah, they constantly striving for relevance. I'm good friends with the county manager.
Yeah. They were talking a little bit about doing more shared services and I was like, I think we're good.
Any questions there? Okay, great. All right, the next thing is for, going through the, so you consider them changes, but the update on the bond issues.
Yeah, there was a slight, I wouldn't call it a change, but a slight uniqueness this year. So a bit of history, we came in December, and presented a request for bond authorization for $12.9 million for the CIP projects for our annual borrowing. Started down the path of getting all the documents ready to go to market. Hired a new bond counsel because our previous one is retiring. In that process, the new bond counsel, I guess one being new to us, really dug into the weeds and the details of our bond issue. So some things that came out of that were this thing called a small issuer. If you issue tax exempt bonds, you're not subject to arbitrage rules. If you issue within a calendar year less than $5 million for regular CIP, and then an additional $10 million of school construction, and that's actual construction, not maintenance and large repairs that fall under the CIP umbrella. So we blew past that with our almost 13 million. So losing the small issuer exemption, when you're a small issuer, you can, our practice that we've been doing long before I came to the town, but we continue as we spend the CIP and then we bundle them up and we come and we bond those.
Essentially pay ourselves back.
Pay ourselves back, replenish our cash coffers and do the next round, do that annually. We keep our cash in a good position. When you're doing that bundling process as a small issuer, you can look back 36 months. When you lose that small issuer exemption, you shorten that look back period to 18 months. So you risk losing those oldest 18 months from an ability to bond it. And that's for issuing tax exempt bonds. If you're doing taxable structures like you can do taxable GOs, or there's bond anticipation notes, which I'm going to discuss what we did here. You still have the 36-month look back period for those. So we met with Joe Couture and mapped out some strategies. The second part of that issue was the 4.7 for the school. There were absolutely no changes with that. It's going forward just as it was presented. So nothing changes there. We bundled up the oldest projects, and that got us under the 5 million. So we have a 4.7.
Just coincidentally have
Coincidentally.
the same number.
Yeah, rounded has to be the same number, but it's 4.7. That we sold as a tax exempt general obligation, 20-year bond. That our normal sale. The remainder little over 8 million. We sold as a bond anticipation note. Which is, it's allowed under our fiscal policy. It's a typical, other towns in Maine use bands all the time. So it's typical to the market. It's not unique. So it's got a good history of being a viable financial tool to municipalities. So we sold that, and with the intent, and it's a 1-year maturity. So the intent will be to do what's called a refunding next year with a tax exempt. And you basically get those expenditures into the tax exempt realm when you do the refunding. And we'll do a 20-year refunding on those this time next year. We had a favorable tick on the true interest costs on the, hang on a second, my laptop just went to sleep on me there, so.
Sorry, Norm, can I ask a clarifying question? So did we do a Series A, a Series B, and the ban?
Yes, sir.
So Series A was for 4.7, Series B was for 4.7, and the ban was the 8.2?
Correct.
You got it.
You got it.
We sold 2 of the 3 so far. The final sale is next Tuesday or Wednesday?
Thursday.
Thursday, excuse me.
Because we're doing multiple sales. Not to get really into the weeds, it's called common plan of financing for arbitrage rules. So we had to spread them out so that our arbitrage issues kind of stayed back.
Spread out the sale, you mean?
Yeah. We put 15 days between them so that
We also wanted the market to kind of reset, or the
Yeah.
investors, that little space in between.
Yeah. So that's what we have. We've sold the band, we've sold the Series A. We'll get our funds next Thursday, which is the same day that we're actually selling the next series. And then there will be roughly 2 weeks after that when we get the funds from that sale. So this process has kind of opened the eyes for me particularly that it's going to lead to some changes on how we do our financing of CIP. Our annual CIP plan, it has exceeded 5 million.
And will likely continue.
And
to.
will continue.
It's just-
Further, with the school project, we're blowing way past the 10 million on school construction. So we're losing the small issuer exception for a multitude of reasons. And so it makes sense now to, when we develop our budget for CIP and you all authorize the CIP plan for the budget year, that we go ahead and bond those soon after and advance fund. And then that will bring some new work for the finance department called arbitrage monitoring. And almost all municipalities that I know of hire consultants for that. One of our banks has a program where they pay for that. So I will be most likely taking advantage of their arbitrage monitoring program at no cost to the town. But it's just
that reporting really has to do with us demonstrating.
Yeah.
Arbitrage is intended to get around what happened rampantly for decades, which was borrow money cheap and invest it at a higher rate and essentially make money on it. So they said, no, you can't do that. And so the new IRS and SEC rules require us to demonstrate and then report out that we spent the money within certain periods of time, 12 or 18 months.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's some milestones where you have to have a certain percentage of it
So
spent.
when we advance, borrow money earlier than we have historically done, we'll also scrutinize the CIP because there's some things we know because of the project or whatever it is that we don't need to borrow it yet because it's actually 24 months off. So we'll scrutinize those. We're not going to simply bond everything you approve upfront.
Does this have any like bottom line impacts to our debt service or anything like that with the change, or is it?
You're probably forward shifting a little bit the debt service on the CIP program. But that goes back to being more cognizant of what projects are shovel ready. And you kind of hone in your project plan to what you are comfortable putting out there to get started.
You're still paying the same debt service over the same term. It's just a matter, you're
Earlier,
probably paying it 1 year earlier,
Yeah.
but it's still
Right.
will be 20 years or 25.
And obviously the big wild card is, you know, borrow now, you borrow a year from now, what are interest rates? We don't know. So
but it sounds like maybe the first year we do this might be the only year where there's some sort of impact, but it sounds like if we are thoughtful about the projects like you're saying.
yeah,
that would
we'll mitigate that. We'll
Yeah.
mitigate a lot of that.
And we can even structure the debt such that it's interest only payments.
Yeah.
There's ways to kind of minimize the
Mhm.
first year impacts.
Right.
Okay.
On this year of change, going to the 18-month look back instead of 36, are we missing out on anything, a project from 36 years ago that we haven't completed and now it's? No.
We will still continue our look back until we gather all those that are eligible for bonding. And then there will be a cutover point where,
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll be able to secure long-term financing as we always intended. We won't be kind of stuck
Yeah.
funding with
That's what
cash
I- yeah.
any projects.
yeah,
But to do so, we need to do this 1 year ban to kind of
yeah.
clean things
And
up.
we may have to do another ban for that catch-up period that Larry's asking about to kind of get everything pulled forward and bonded.
I want to make sure we don't leave without reporting what the interest costs were.
Get in there, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just-
So that's kind of how we landed on the first two pieces of the three-part debt issue. And as I alluded to earlier, we got a very favorable rate on the GO bond, the true interest cost, which takes into account the bond premium that the bidders gave us 2.74739%. So 2.75% effective interest rate, which
Yeah, this
is
incredible.
really good. For the ban, since it was taxable and it's a shorter term, it had a little bit different rate. We got a 3.779541, so 3 3/4.
And those generally will be higher because you don't have the advantage of the,
Tax exempt, right. So when we refund those next year into tax exempt, we'll
See a drop.
see a drop in the rate.
Are the
And
Series B ones tax exempt or no?
the school will be tax
Yep.
exempt. Yeah, yes, sir. And then just to, I don't know if we've reported this out yet. I think you may have in your manager's report, but our ratings agencies, so Moody's, who upgraded us last year, reaffirmed their AA2, and S&P reaffirmed AA+, which we've been that credit rating for quite some time.
On that score, both rating agencies, I think, have upped their game. I suspect they may be required, but their credit opinions are something worth looking at because they give us a pretty good hint of what can we do to increase our rating and consequently, or conversely, what could we do that would cause a downgrade. But it also kind of gives us marks for the different categories that they value in terms of governance and other factors. Climate change, not surprisingly, is becoming an increasing part of their area of interest. And, we had very favorable conversations with a lot of the plans that you funded and that we've done, the vulnerability, now the climate action. All of that, it bodes well for us.
It's good.
Was that why like when I look at the environmental score, it said that we're low risk it kind of came across. Is that because
You want to be low risk in their minds.
and that's, to me, I'm like, we're low risk. Is it because we're prepared? Is it because like we've,
Part of that, and we have capacity to deal with anything
Deal
that
with
comes
it.
up.
Yeah.
right, okay.
Yeah.
Right, so our heads aren't in the sand, we're making ourselves aware where we're vulnerable and we have capacity to deal with
Okay.
these things.
And the hurricanes typically abate a little bit by the time they get to us. So
That keeps us good.
thankfully,
Ice storms is the worst thing.
yeah.
Say that, you could have a catastrophe. The big picture, just, and Norm, correct me if I'm wrong about this, and Larry will remember this intensely through the whole, SBAC 2 process and through building up the referendum, predicted impact on taxpayers is a big part of the consideration. And so we informed the committee and then the public, using our, different modeling tools. One of the major assumptions was what interest rate on 140 million bucks. And we vacillated back and forth. We were recommending 3.25. In the end, the model we used, I think, was 3.75.
Yeah, we were 3.5 for most of the,
3.5. Given these results, we think, and we reported at the time, we think that's a very conservative number. And this suggests that, in fact, it was. So those numbers are likely to be less impact on our residents.
Would they, like, does the size of the bond have any impact on the percentages that we would get? Because these are relatively smaller, so I'm just trying to understand, is it really apples to apples, or is it maybe not gonna be as high as 3.5, but this number tells us it could be a little bit lower?
we had 9 people bid on the tax exempt.
Is that is that good?
Yeah, very
So
good.
it's competitive, yeah.
That's
yeah.
fantastic. And we had 3 people bid on the ban.
Mm,
So, all of the bidders on the tax exempt were under 3% true interest costs. Highly competitive. And that is that's the greatest impact
mhm.
on, your
Yeah, there's a
interest rate.
saving grace of, Scarborough has always held a higher debt load than most of our peer communities, and certainly by Maine standards. But what that gives the investors is good line of sight that
Mhm.
we've got systems, we've done this,
We're
we
paying our bills.
pay our bills.
Exactly.
And it's manifests itself best in the rating agencies. We made them aware 3 years ago that this project was coming forward. And so it's not a surprise. They've been including this in their commentary and now it's here. And in spite of that, we actually get an upgrade. So investors look very carefully at these agencies in terms of how they view us as a risk.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, we pay our bills.
Having read I did read the reports. Is there something, Norm, you think, or Tom, that we should be doing or be focused on to try and maintain that? With how we're managing things, like, is there,
I think our systems are exactly what we need to maintain our ratings.
Mhm.
We manage our debt. We get unqualified audit opinions. We file timely so that we have current information. We're doing all the right things.
Mhm. But from the metrics that they look at, is there anything
There's
that,
3 things that come to mind. We've worked exceedingly well and get good marks for it, building fund balance, which
Mhm.
is very hard to do. They told us we were weak there. We said, okay, and we actually demonstrated progress. So I think we need to protect that, as best we can and not touch it, as tempting as it might be.
Yeah.
The 2 other areas are kind of emerging, and I think, we'd be wise to spend more time, on climate related issues. I think that's going to continue to be a very important focal point. And cybersecurity is another one that we are hearing, consistently now. That was 5 years ago. That was
One
not,
of the
that was not
ratings
talked about.
reports mentioned that our climate action plan.
Yep.
And so they're aware that it's out there and they're aware that we're putting systems in place to manage the
Yeah.
risk.
I think of when Jen comes here, she always brings up cybersecurity. So
Yeah.
from that perspective, are you thinking we're gonna be investing more in that next
Uh,
year, or? are we doing the right things to invest?
No, I think
in it?
we did do townwide and school-wide training. We've done, and you've helped us invest heavily in the right systems. So I don't expect anything unique and different there. But I think we need to be hyper vigilant. It is everywhere. There's phishing attacks that are ongoing.
Mhm.
So go back to the rate and the competitiveness. We were intentional about the time we went to market. Joe tells us that the January effect is there's a lot of money that needs to be reinvested in January. So there's a highly competitive pool of people with money that need to reinvest it into bonds and other instruments. So
Gold too, maybe, who knows?
yeah, so the fact that we got 9 bids on our tax exempt. And we got 8 or 9 last January when we went to market, so, I mean, that just stresses to me that, need to listen to Joe once in a while.
Yeah, the other things that seem superficial, but I think they matter is, we're over 20 years consecutively for winning awards for GFOA and financial reporting and timely audits. I was just reading the paper, City of Biddeford is 2 years behind on their audits.
Really?
They
Wow.
had to pay a $500,000 fine for
Wow.
certain things. So these things seem routine and boring, but they really matter. And to these folks, it just is another demonstration that these guys have their house in order.
No, I thought there was an article that said a lot of towns in Maine were like
Yeah,
years behind audits. Yeah,
Sometimes it's not their
Yeah.
fault. The
Yeah.
audit
The really small ones.
firms aren't providing the service anymore.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's self-imposed, other times they're a
Just trying to
victim
get
of
It's a challenge.
circumstance.
Get on the schedule with this.
doing better than them, either way.
We're doing better than a lot of people.
Well, it sounds like a kind of an aggregate of all that is,
All that goes into the management score that they
Yeah.
give us, so, yeah, I mean, it may not seem important, but it is.
Right.
do we talk at all about kind of what to I mean, this is obviously somewhat in the weeds, what to report out through council at all? I'd like to reinforce that there were some naysayers at the time of modeling for the school project that were pushing to assume a higher rate. So I think that would, I don't want to remodel it because there's
No.
too many unknowns before we actually go to market on those bonds. But if there was a way to reassure people that and it may be.
Well, and it's a little
Specs right
early to
now.
remodel, because this is just as you know, a sliver of what we're gonna
Right.
follow.
Taking
Right.
time.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't do a victory lap as tempting as
Yeah.
it might be, but I think it's an opportunity to say, this suggests that our model, we were conservative and we're.
That's what I
likely to
mean,
be.
informational, not so
And
much.
there'll be another opportunity with school impact fees. We consciously did not include any money from school
Right.
impact fees in that model. So that's.
Maybe
another
we
thing
bundle
that's-
that together,
Mhm.
meaning like there's a kind of a school.
Yeah, so it just gives us confidence that our models were conservative and we're likely to do better
Yeah.
because of these things.
It sounds like, because that's gonna be at our next meeting, right, is the impact fee for
Mhm.
first reading, so I don't know if in the town manager's report or something, or
Yeah,
however we're doing it, making sure that somebody ties those pieces together for the public, I think would be good. Not to like oversell or over celebrate, but just to say, be consistent with what we've said, which is we were conservative, this shows we're conservative. Impact fees are now gonna become a factor.
I
We're
might
doing the right thing.
just for continuity, I will not be at the meeting. Liam, I think, was intending to provide just an overview of the interest costs and our bond rating results, kind of high level.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think it would be an opportunity for you as a member of SBAC and currently as the finance chair to make that observation that, both these factors will likely have a positive effect on the model that we had.
Yeah, my comments will be before Liam's, right? Is that right?
We'll go do the town manager update and then you can probably just,
Just jump in on it?
yeah.
Okay.
We're trying to get away from that, but.
It's a good point, but it's an important point to make.
I've
I'll try not to be
I wish we
confrontational.
had the rate on the second sale.
The other
That
thing-
won't be until the
You-
night after.
The next item after the manager's report is counselor or liaison reports, so
Yeah,
you
that's
can
kind of-
report it as finance chair. So
Yeah.
that's an opportunity to.
Is that your preference,
Yeah.
Karen? Keep it in.
You know how I feel.
No.
If it's not on that report, I don't want to
You're
talk
gonna
about
have to,
it.
like, you need to sit next to me so you
Amen.
can jab me when I say something.
Amen.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna talk about quickly about the, that it will be on the agenda for the impact fees. I don't even know if I should get into like what we estimate it could cover 22% of the debt service, right? You know, and also these favorable, the last two bond issues have had very favorable interest rates below what our modeling was, so. it
That
gives
could
us
add
a lot of
Likely to
confidence.
have, positive impact on taxpayers.
Yeah.
I don't know, that it needs to be more specific, or you can be more specific.
All right. Any other questions? Nope. And that brings us to council goals. Well, the impact on the finance committee for council goals, just a quick discussion on that. I can just start that a little bit in that I saw, obviously, the financial affordability and capital planning would impact us. And I had a couple more to ask about if we want to deliberately consider them as under growth. There's expanding the use of impact fees for open space and public safety. And under communication to continue explore and budget print engagement with the public. That seems fairly minor to me. I don't know that we need to do, but the impact fees, kind of as we're talking about our responsibilities under the goals, we've pre-assigned these to committees or individual people. And should we just stay with that format and wait till somebody comes to us for how we might
I would say,
contribute to those conversations?
I'd say you're assigned to growth. And it does make sense that finance, to me, is a place to talk about impact fees. So I think as you work through our agendas, I think bringing that one in
Okay, yep,
makes sense to me.
okay.
Mhm.
And then the other one, I think Liam's gonna give us an update at our comms meeting in terms of the budget that they're proposing for this one. So I think we
Okay.
will address that one and it will come through the budget process.
Okay, and then do we want to talk at all right now about how we can attack the other ones and how do we plan for that to stay on track to achieve the goals?
I'll speak to the first one. We've kind of broached the issue with senior staff to say we've been tasked with producing this by the end of the year, so they're aware of it. Honestly, I don't expect much work will happen, before budget or even during budget. But we're well aware of this and we'll do our level best. So a lot of this work, I think, is laid out through the various plans. There's some other stuff that we'll have to produce separate, but a fair amount of it is kind of there. It just needs to be collated, if you will. I'm a little worried about the numbers that are going to be produced, but we need to understand them. I guess I won't speak to the 0%, but just while I've got the floor, I did have a meeting with the library trustees. They are kind of getting their act back together and still are very interested in taking another swing at this. They didn't really say what their timeline was, so I think we're probably okay in the current calendar year. But make no mistake, they're interested in coming back around. And the last one, I can just speak to the fact that I'm very actively involved in a local group on property tax relief. There's 5 of us on a subcommittee exploring very deeply a variation of local option sales tax that involves kind of on a county basis. And we think that will address some of the political hurdles that have been thrown up in the past. And I believe John was in touch with GPCOG. This is certainly something we could have a future workshop on. I think we need to flesh this out a bit further and so we can describe it better, but that work is actively underway.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like the 20-year plan feels like a post-budget
Mhm.
focus. Cause I view the CIP providing the first 5 years, and then it's like, okay, well, what happens in the next 15? And so it gives staff the opportunity to first focus on the first 5 that we need for budget and then focus on the rest.
Mhm.
Um, for the 0% mill rate, I think it's important, like the wording matters and it says work towards a 0%. So it's not that, well, I think the ideal goal would be 0%. I think the reality, knowing some of the things that I shared about the county, what was shared from the board, um, you know, and knowing that there were some choices we made last budget that will impact this budget, like the full cost of the firefighters,
Mhm.
0% is gonna be, you know, a challenge, something I think we kind of want to continue to push towards, but I also think we need to be realistic as we go through the budget process and hear what's needed. I did hear from Shannon as well that this trend of continuing to get, you know, kindergartners that need special education services is not slowing down. Like that's just we probably should expect that every year. And so again, if that's the same, then that's going to be another big cost. And then I'm not sure how insurance is working, but I'm hearing everybody saying insurance is going
Yeah, double
crazy.
digits.
Yeah. I did last year too.
Yeah. So this is where I think there's some elements that are going to be outside of our control that are just going to come in, and we're just going to have to see where that takes us.
Our cost of living number is down. Well,
3.3% is the cost of living adjustment we'll be using. It was 4.5 last year, so that has come down a bit. But yeah, in addition to some revenues looking like they're gonna kind of level out, the county tax increase, there are other expenses that are gonna continue to,
Mhm.
it's gonna be a challenge. Yeah, it's gonna be a challenge.
I think when I first started talking about this process, I was more referring to, it's kind of an older process, but of zero-based budgeting where you
Mhm.
kind of, everybody justifies why they need more money, which I think is part of your process already. But it is kind of aspirational
Yeah.
and that, I think we need to be careful. And maybe we've missed the ball a little bit on, having the wording on that where, personally, I don't expect we're gonna have a 0% change, so I think, I don't want that to be seen as failure either. It's
Yeah.
really just a focus on doing, everything possible, justifying, expansion and increases.
Mhm.
I'd like us to have a focus on recurring expense also, that like the firefighters that are then permanent in effect.
Mhm.
And, so I think we can try to work and do some communication around expectations there.
Mhm. Agreed.
good.
It's great to hear about, like what Tom was referring to, when Jamie Garvin sent the email to us that I think we all got, or maybe we all did if you're registered for the GPCOG emails. He had shared that, the hearing for LD 2173 moved, and I just thanked him for the emails and said, really interested knowing that there's a lot of work on the property tax relief.
Mhm.
And then we had some back and forth, and I kind of said, Tom was on there, and I just basically said, well, when Tom and leadership thinks the timing is right, it would be great to have a workshop and hear what GPCOG has come up with all of these other groups, and just figure out where we can then also, like we're advocating right now for 2173, advocate for whatever legislation may be surrounding this.
Yeah, it's a good dress rehearsal, right?
Yeah.
We're learning how to get weighed into the legislative process.
And we know
There's-
not to go on time
No,
and to wait.
You just have to bring a
Appreciating.
meal with you.
Yeah, bring a meal.
It was nice to spend quality time with Counselor Kane. It was a long day.
Yeah.
So do you feel like we need to flush this out anymore for our commitment here for the goals into a calendar or action items, or kind of revisit it after budget? Or
I would
Mhm.
just suggest for the advocacy one for tax relief, just in your role as vice chair,
Mhm.
don't forget at some point, maybe have a workshop.
Mhm.
I think that would kind of satisfy that one, in my opinion. And then for the first one, I think if we can agree, like after budget, how that looks, and then I would look to you, Tom, and staff around the impact.
It's likely to be a fall, not project, but fall kind of result.
Right,
if you
yeah.
will.
And then the impact fees, I don't know what all is on staff's plate of like when we can anticipate that discussion.
I wonder if we can start with Karen Martin on that of
Hmm.
trying to do that analysis on what it might be.
Yeah.
I do have a question that came up through the school committee. Norm, you may know this, that there's some significant budget lines for the school project for impact fees. And I was curious, I don't know that there's town authority over any of those. I think they might be more like Scarborough Sanitary and maybe even some state-based things. But maybe traffic, I don't know, but so I just need to try to look into that to see if there's,
Yeah, I'd like to know more about it. It wouldn't make sense for us to charge ourselves impact
Right,
fees.
yeah. and I
So,
have asked Harriman to, if they have insight on it, just from other projects and also but if there's an opportunity there, I'd want to try to waive them if it, rather than just pushing the money around.
I suspect they're outside of our control.
I think so, yeah. Anything else on that? And with that, any public comment? Yeah. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.